Welcome back to Calafiori. No. 22-year-old Italian international defender Riccardo Calafiori looks set to sign for Arsenal. As of recording this video, this is the latest information we have from the Romano-Ornstein double pivot, and the situation's moving fast as Arsenal seek to secure their first deal of the summer window. A 6'2" left-footed defender, Calafiori has come to the English and Premier League watching public's attention this summer with his performances for Italy at the European Championships. His composure, athletic frame and smoothness on the ball, combined with that old-school Italian steel and haircut, make it easy to see why. Blue steel, maybe. And while we, or certainly I, have only really just caught on to this talent, it appears Arsenal have been tracking him for a long time. Full disclosure, I'm not the world's leading expert on Riccardo Calafiori, and I don't pretend to be. Since the links, I've watched him on Y-Scout, I've seen the compilations, obviously watched him for Italy, but I still have a way to go in terms of my understanding of the player. I hate this idea that everyone is immediately a world expert on every single player that gets linked. But I want to give you my thoughts on what I've seen so far, and why I think the first impression might be the most important part. Actually, I have been to Bologna, so maybe I am an expert. I want to start with a comparison to get our eyes adjusted. A left-sided Ben White. I don't think it's necessarily the perfect comparison, but it's a good starting place to get a sense of what we're looking at. An amazing pick out from my boy George on the Canon podcast when we were doing our initial scouting was Calafiori's usage of what's called the stutter step, which Ben White also uses well. From what I've seen so far, Calafiori has this amazing way of getting to his man quickly to stop him progressing, utilising those big strides, then slowing himself down so he doesn't clatter you, before almost flicking the ball out from under you in such a casual way. He can be a bit over-aggressive at times, probably more so than White, and he was suspended for Italy's defeat to Switzerland with 2 yellow cards, but there's a confidence and a kind of casual brilliance in the 1v1s that really reminds me of Ben White, and can't really be taught. Similar to Ben White again, there's a comfortability in a number of different zones and roles. I think he's probably more comfortable inside than White, and White is probably more comfortable outside, but they can both do both. I'd say Ben has a quicker top speed, as Calafiori isn't the quickest over long distances, but Calafiori has that same intelligence in his running we see from the right-hand side. So when he does go on the overlap, he does time it well. Calafiori, I'd say, is a bit smoother when receiving the ball, but they both have that similar way of gliding on the pitch in possession. Like a shark, they can surf the waves of the field, which grabs you from that very first watch. Sorry. Weird metaphor.
Do you like free stuff? Do you like being safe? Do you like sharks? Say yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring this video and The Different Knock over the summer.
The Euros are on, and I know what you're thinking. How do I protect myself when I'm watching my favourite team? Well, you need a VPN.
What's a VPN?
A VPN is a virtual private network, which means no matter where you're accessing the internet from, it encrypts your data, keeping it private and secure. You could be in a coffee shop, a hotel, a bar, the Emirates, the Tollington.
Surfshark has you covered from hackers, scammers, and general baddies. Except the good baddies, if you know what I mean.
But more than that, it means you can watch TV shows, films, online content, and much more from wherever you are in the world, in any country of your choosing. Because Surfshark offers more than 3,200 different servers to surf from in over 100 locations with 24/7 customer support. And you can use the same account across every device in your house.
You can also block ads, but not on my videos.
I'm going to be on holiday for the Euros final, so I will be using Surfshark to watch it from abroad.
Check out the link in the description and use the coupon code TDK for an extra 4 months. Yes, 4 months free. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you don't like it, get your money back. Go unprotected. See if I can. No fun forever.
Thank you, Surfshark. Sorry. Where were we? But where Ben White is more of a runner, Calafiori is definitely more carry first. What I was really impressed by when watching him is his willingness to take the ball forward again and again and again, no matter the circumstance, and many times without an angle bias to the left. You see that in his now infamous assist to Italy against Croatia, and it's probably too much, but he backs himself, and that's what I love, because reining something in is a lot easier than getting someone to do something they're not comfortable with. And this is really the point. It's the personality that I love with Calafiori. This is an unruffleable player. A guy who came back from a nearly career-ending injury in 2018 with, quote, motocross-level knee damage. Born in Rome, he's had an unconventional and challenging rise through the youth system, touted as one of the best young talents at the club, but having to wait his turn after falling out of favour under Mourinho, before having to go out on loan at Genoa and leaving for Basel before returning to Italy. You know when someone walks in the room and you're just like, I trust you. I don't know why, but I trust you. Something in the way they carry themselves, the way they present themselves, the way they communicate. Mikel has it, and I think we all relate to that feeling, even if we can't quite put our finger on what it is. And from interviews, stories, reports, and mostly watching him play, I feel that with Calafiori. You might not see it personally, but there's not many mistakes with talent at the top level. You can't hide. That aura that was picked up on by everyone at the Euros, we can joke about it, but some defenders have it and some don't. And we feel the difference. It's not logical. Why does Van Dijk have an aura that strikers comment on, while Rafa Varane doesn't? You can call it defensive leadership or point to traits or whatever you want. You can make it logical, but I would argue it's simply felt. We'll return more to the profile a little bit later, but we all know what a Mikel Arteta defender is going to be like. Strong in the duels, calm, composed, probably over 6 foot, versatile. So the more interesting question is not why do we like Calafiori, because there's a lot to like, but why, in a more broad sense, are we doing this? Why spend more resources on defenders, adding to what is undoubtedly the best defence in the league? And why do it specifically on the left when it feels like we've got loads of options there and Timber returning? It feels a bit like overkill, no? Well, firstly, I always say transfer order doesn't equal priority. Because by that logic, Pablo Mari is Arteta's favourite ever player. Just because something happens first doesn't make it the most important thing that's going to happen that summer. I doubt that bolster defence was on point 1 of the summer review PDF. It's just fallen that way. But secondly, I think it's because, despite literally having 6 or 7 options at left back potentially, and probably 4 or 5 at left centre back, the 2 positions I imagine Calafiori will be playing, there are still question marks on the left-hand side of our defence. Not many per player, but even 1 or 2 per player now might be too many. Mikel recently gave brilliant interviews to James Ollie from ESPN and CBS Sports to promote the US tour. And in the CBS interview, he mentioned the work he's doing now is to close margins that previously, quote, we didn't even think about. We're going to have to be so good that our worst level is better than anyone else's best. He talks about those 10, 5 and 1% margins that now need to close and says that the way to get there is through raising the level of the players. So we need, as close as you can possibly get, to total trust in every single player that goes out there. When Alexander Zinchenko arrived in the summer of 2022, he changed our world. I still remember marvelling at the football I was watching on TV on that opening night at Selhurst Park. And there is absolutely no doubt that Zinchenko is a brilliant footballer. But as we go into 24-25, just 2 years later, there's an argument Zinchenko is our 5th choice left back, behind Timber, Tomiyasu, Kivior, and now Calafiori. If Tierney, Tavares, or both stick around, who knows where he could be in that hierarchy in a few months. And there must be a reason why, other than some agenda against Alexander Zinchenko. No one's saying he's a bad player, but it seems the mistakes he's made, as the team has evolved around him, have been noticed. When you're in a normal scenario, not trying to beat robots, you might be able to hold on to a Zinchenko and allow for that slightly more specialist profile with a couple of mistakes a year. But can we? Now? When the margins are so fine? Because I don't fully trust him anymore, but more importantly, it feels like Mikel Arteta doesn't either. Jakub Kivior is another player with eyes on him in the light of this. Since signing from Spezia in January 2023, despite some good periods and encouraging signs, I've always felt there's still something not quite clicking. People will maybe point to certain bits of his channel defending, can he contribute in the final third? But for me, it's about his personality to play. I've taken pelters for saying stuff like this before, and I want to be super clear. I don't care what you're like off the pitch. I do not mind a shy character. He could never say a word to club media, Sky Sports, TNT. I don't care. But I think his shyness translates to his game, and that's my issue. Do I totally trust him to stand up in a game and change it for us or pull something out of the hat? No. More importantly, whatever you think of the talent, do you? It might seem harsh. Why can't he be shy? But if we're trying to close margins that previously we didn't even think about, we might have to risk being hypercritical to get there. With more fixtures next year, Tomiyasu will surely be crucial, and his versatility across the back line is what makes him so. But up to now, there have always been question marks over his injury record. Serious question. Can we allow for that now, considering we might have lost those 2 points at Anfield because we had to play Zinchenko? 11, 16, and 13 games missed over the last 3 seasons. It might be harsh, but to close that 2 or 3% margin, Calafiori might be what we need to do. I think Tierney and Tavares speak for themselves trust-wise, and on the flip side, Gabriel is clearly trusted, but he can't play every minute. And with Timber, don't hate me, I do have some minor questions. I do predict, as I said in my previous video, that we might have to be patient with him. Going all in on a still recovering Timber at left back from the off, when we know a slow start to the season might kill us, could be a recipe for disaster. It might be fine, but let's alleviate that doubt. So when we look at that side, there's a trust gap. And if we want to close those smallest of margins, we have to do it with emphatic certainty. While I felt we might need to do something on the right side of the defence, numbers-wise, earlier in the summer, maybe the hole to fill is the one with, yes, more numbers, but actually more question marks. Of course, you'll never find a talent with 0 question marks. Even Saliba, although I consider him the best centre-back in the world right now, maybe there's one about him in the air. But in terms of that total, almost 100% security, I fully back Calafiori to not only slot in and consistently deliver immediately, eliminating that doubt and closing those margins, but also help us to improve where we're weak with his unique skill set. I think he helps us solve the issue we've had with carries, which we've discussed in previous videos. The addition of this profile means we can carry from deep with quality, centrally with Saliba, on the right with Timber, and on the left with Calafiori. Things to improve? Sure. I think his crossing execution can use some work. As I mentioned, I think he can be a little bit over-aggressive, and I think he releases too late sometimes in the carry, but at least he shows a personality. And my word is he smooth on the ball. Able to bait a press, able to receive on both feet, can use his right but prefers his left. He's a proactive thinker in the first phase, almost attack-minded in that sense, despite having the composure and dual capacity to play as a centre-back. He's direct and brave, and we need that. Maybe the only real question mark is his injury record. If you're squeamish, don't look it up, but the injury he suffered was horrendous. You see these lists of injuries on Transfermarkt and panic, but when you've undermined the stability of your leg that badly, it's only natural you have a lot of knock-on effect. People thought it was career over. I still think it's affecting him pace-wise, but with only 2 games missed last season, I think he's over the worst of it. Finally, the deal. The price seems fair to me, considering the quality and the fact that Basel have such a high sell-on clause, and the wages are genuinely incredible. 60k a week for a player of this quality, who by the way I suspect won't always demand to play, represents a quadrupling in his wage, so he's happy, but a drop in the ocean with huge room to grow for us. As a total financial package over 5 years, if we assume the price tag is £50 million, it's around £65 million, or £13 million a year. Harry Maguire's United package from 2019 is worth double that. Is he the perfect player? Absolutely not. But do I trust him? Yeah. So to close those tiny margins, this feels like a smart move from Arsenal. Knowing us, we won't announce it till February 2026, but if Calafiori arrives, I think it represents something for Arsenal this summer. We're leaving literally no stone unturned in our search for our first title in over 2 decades.
If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon monthly, or you can buy us a coffee.